In 2005, a video game was released for this Sonic character who was, and probably is until today, the most popular, Shadow the Hedgehog. This game, however, has a really debatable reputation and is often called dark or edgy. This probably doesn't only come from the vehicles Shadow uses, but also from weapons. Especially in times like today, a really difficult topic. I, however, always loved the game. The reason for that is the interesting way of play. Because Shadow searches for his lost memories, he always has to decide anew whom to trust and who not to. For the player, this means that in every level they have a choice of multiple missions, of which they can do one. And every mission lets Shadow's way proceed in a different direction. And today, I, Andy, will present you this game with an additional challenge. Can you beat Shadow the Hedgehog without collecting a single ring? I hope you enjoy it. And those are the rules. Number 1, obviously, I must not collect any ring. The ring counter on the lower left has to stay at 0 and must not change for any reason. There are normal rings, rings from balloons or item boxes, and rings from save points. If you touch a save point, you get rings. And you can teleport to other save points, but I guess we have to do without that this time. If you already have 100 rings, you get a 1-up instead of rings from save points, but in the best case it doesn't come that far. Number 2. I can play the story routes I want to, but I have to reach every ending at least once. In the stages you often have the choice between a good or hero mission, an evil or dark mission, and a neutral or normal mission where you just have to reach some kind of goal. There's a story map where you advance step by step to the right. Almost always after you complete a dark mission, the next stage you will play will be one row higher. After a normal mission you stay on the same row, and after a hero mission you move down. So you can influence your story by playing certain missions. Characters that give you hero missions, that's of course Sonic and his friends, but also Maria. Dark missions often come from Black Doom, a villain only present in this game who often uses his eye to represent himself, but also of course from Dr. Eggman. So there are many funny possible ways to create a story route. There are 10 different ending points of a story, so regarding our rules, we have to play at least 10 stories. After doing this, the last story is unlocked that shall conclude this challenge. As last half rule again I have that I shall avoid glitches whenever I can. This should be self-explaining. If possible, don't do anything that's obviously not wanted from the game. Now that we have the rules, let us begin with the first story. As many possible ways as there are, at the beginning there's always the same stage. It is called Westopolis. Seriously game? That's how you start the challenge with me? 5 rings that I automatically collect and cannot skip? Well, unfortunately, yes. That's why the result of this challenge is already clear. It is not possible to complete Shadow the Hedgehog without collecting rings. So from now on, I will just search for the minimal amount. In every stage, the mission characters can also help and go with you, and normally I find them quite entertaining and helpful, but they collect rings quite often, so I just switch them off by pressing the D-pad down. Also, because this is a 3D Sonic game, it's quite easy to avoid rings after all, so I will mainly show the important places. For example, it's no problem to collect the blue Chaos Emerald and complete the normal mission of Westopolis with just the 5 rings of the beginning. For the other 2 missions, you have to go past the Chaos Emerald to the last area. In the Dark mission, you have to beat 35 gun soldiers for Black Doom, for the Hero mission, 45 Black Arms for Sonic. Both of them are also possible with just 5 rings. I will do every stage one by one from now on and then puzzle together the routes. After the Westopolis Dark mission you land in Digital Circuit, and immediately you land on these circuits that shoot you forward and you can only steer left or right. Even the best way right at the start gives you 24 rings already. Further down the path, this doesn't get better. You even have to let yourself get hit by firewalls twice just to avoid rings. Luckily, hits only cost you 10 rings in this game and not all of them. But there are 5 rings that you cannot avoid. However, sometimes you only collect 4 of them. I did this with save states, to be honest. Later I get invincibility at a random capsule, and I need it for the last set of circuits, to get through the firewalls undamaged and avoid this 10 ring balloon on the right. else I would die, but this way it's exactly enough from the number of hits. But I can't avoid these 4 rings, and still I need them for the next firewall. The rest of the way goes pretty much without a problem. You can easily get to the Chaos Emerald Rouge wants you to collect and finish the hero mission with 32 rings. For the dark mission you have to go up in the same room and through a warp hole. Unfortunately, you land on a save point directly afterwards and collect 10 rings that you cannot avoid. I tried everything. In the last room you might have problems with a staircase, but then you can destroy the core program for Black Doom and end the dark mission with 42 rings. The neutral path leads to Glyphic Canyon. This zip path lets you land on the first save point, so you have to use a spin dash to get past it. After the tornado, you land on the second save point that you cannot skip, but you can fill up one of the 2 gauges on the top. Doing good deeds fills up the blue gauge, bad ones the red gauge. If one of the 2 gauges is full, you can use your ultimate powers, so I destroy a lot of things and fill up the red gauge to use Chaos Blast, which destroys everything in a small radius. This lets you gain a bit of height as well, and like that I can skip the save point. Afterwards there's yet another zip path that lets you land on a save point, so I have to use another spin dash around it. The 4th save point is not a problem, but you have to fill up the red gauge once more, because there's another save point directly after a tornado. With Hero Shadow and Dark Shadow as his forms are called, you are also invincible. The 6th save point is after another zip path, but this time you can press left or right to avoid it. So you can finish the hero mission where you defeat 60 black arms for Knuckles without collecting rings, as well as the dark mission where you activate 5 temple jewels for Black Doom, or the normal mission where you collect the yellow Chaos Emerald. After Westopolis Hero we have Little Highway, and we collect 6 rings already. But in the PS2 version I occasionally only got 1. Whatever. Sonic wants us to destroy the tank of the Black Arms, so I get a semi-automatic rifle which does double damage, then I get Hero Shadow to be invincible so my ammunition counter doesn't count down, and I destroy the tank. After only half of the stage I succeeded. Or we decide to do the dark mission. At this place after the last save point Sonic just collects rings again, so I have to call and send him away over and over. Here we have to grind and jump over rings, but this is pretty annoying. Instead I get Hero Shadow and use Chaos Control, which lets us skip parts of the stage. So we can escape the city with Black Doom easily, and both missions are possible with 6 rings. After some stages you have a boss fight, in this case against Black Bull, and I say it how it is. In every boss stage you start with 10 rings, so you should avoid bosses in the first place. Also, you cannot switch off your partner, so you should steer them away from rings as well. Luckily, the other side of the building doesn't have any rings, so all you need to do is to lure the boss there again and again, get Hero Shadow and use Chaos Control, which stops time in boss stages. So you shouldn't have a problem to defeat the boss without collecting any more rings. After Digital Circuit or Glyphic Canyon Dark you land in Cryptic Castle. At this hole you can also just jump around the building to avoid the rings. Later you have the place where you find Cream for the hero mission. There you also have to call and switch off Amy to avoid her getting rings. In every mission however it's better to do the dark path, because the Black Hawk that you find there transports you a bit higher than the other Black Hawk. That makes your life for the next obstacle generally a bit easier. If you want to light the 3rd lantern for the dark mission, you're supposed to take this ball. But it has rings on it, so it's best to just approach it from the other side. Later, you're in the room with all of the chows and the 4th defense lantern. Cheese is there as well, and therefore the end of the hero mission, without rings so far. For the normal mission, you have to go through this hole and jump over some annoying rings. But the rest isn't that hard anymore, so you can leave the castle without rings as well. In the dark mission, you're supposed to do a light dash at one place, which lets you zip along a chain of rings, but obviously we can't do that, so we have to jump over them. The way to the last lantern we have to light for Eggman isn't that hard, so we can also do this without rings. The boss fight in this stage is Egg Breaker. Unfortunately, Amy starts on 1 ring. The fight itself isn't that hard, we just have to steer Amy away from rings, so 11 rings here. Up next is Prison Island. You can get there by helping Rouge in Digital Circuit Hero, doing the normal mission in Glyphic Canyon, or the dark mission for Black Doom in Little Highway. Well, you should know the drill by now. In Prison Island itself, there isn't much worth mentioning. Here might be a rail with some rings on it that want to be jumped over, then there is a save point that you have to press in the correct direction, but nothing really run breaking. Without collecting rings, you can defeat 40 gun robots for Black Doom, or, and I did this first try, collect the White Chaos Emerald. For the hero mission you're supposed to go all the way to the end of the stage to collect the last 2 of 5 top secret discs for Charmy. You can do this without rings as well. Let's continue with Circus Park. We start with the hero mission this time.
Hey Shadow, look at this! Eggman's collected rings from all around the world and has built this theme park. What do you say? How about the 2 of us take all these rings back? That's all of them!
I think that's all I have to say about that. We are much more lucky in the other 2 missions, but you have to watch out a bit. On the ropes there are often rings that you have to jump over, and here Tails just wants to collect rings again. Even if at a much higher place, look at the ring counter that just counts up. But then you can defeat the 20 gun robots for Dr. Eggman without collecting rings. For the normal mission you have to go to the end of the stage again. Here the fire rings are really annoying that give you 5 rings if you go through them. So you have to do some crazy jumps at the 10. Or you decide to do Chaos Control. Afterwards you just have to go to the 4th Chaos Emerald. So you can also do the normal mission without rings. We're in stage 4 already. The darkest path leads to Central City, where Black Doom wants us to destroy the city by triggering the 5 bombs. Because it's pretty easy to get Dark Shadow and walk on the toxic water, and also you just have to be a bit careful. This was one of the missions I think I got first try. I don't remember. Or we defuse 20 small bombs for Knuckles. At the beginning he wants to collect rings again, and then we also need the vacuum gun to suck in the bombs. Unfortunately, that also applies to rings as well as other small items or enemies, so every time we use it we have to watch out. And there's many more dangers in this stage, and the toxic water, and your opponents can also use the vacuum gun, and that is really dangerous for Shadow. And I also don't really know how many bombs I already have without Knuckles, so it took me quite a bit of time. Both missions are possible ringless. Then we have the Doom. In the normal mission you have to bring Maria to safety. I took a shortcut before the second save point by using the bomb. Then I put out a few flames to get the hero gauge full and use Chaos Control to fly to the end of the stage. The only reason this took me so many tries is because I was really dumb doing this. But actually Maria wants us to heal 10 researchers in the hero mission. Of course you have to find them first, and some ways you have to take are a bit longer than in the normal mission. But overall this is also possible without rings. The dark mission brings that to its peak. You have to defeat 60 gun soldiers that are really scattered around everywhere in the level. This mission counts as one of the most annoying ones in the game, but if you know where to search this isn't too hard, even without rings. After the level you have to defeat another boss, the gun robot Heavy Dog. You defeat it by taking off his weapon and using it against him. A really annoying boss fight, but also possible with only the 10 rings you get at the start anyway. The most neutral path lands in Sky Troops, and we start with 22 rings at the beginning. And then this cannon. We have to destroy it, and then go a bit forward to let it respawn, and we have to repeat this 11 times. All just to have the hero gauge full after the second save point, and to use Chaos Control, which we need to skip this light dash path. In this looping there are rings as well. For the dark mission you're also supposed to use this light dash to get to a cannon, but you can also use a spring and get there from below. If you use this zip path you land on a save point, so you also must have Chaos Control ready at this place to skip it. But then everything's possible with 22 rings total. You can execute Eggman's only hero mission and destroy 5 temple jewels, or shoot down 5 battleships for Black Doom, or plainly go to Eggman's flagship. Then Mad Matrix, and we start with the hero mission. At the beginning we are supposed to step on a plate with 4 rings over it, but we can avoid it by doing a good spin dash jump. Then SPO is too close to rings again, and we get out of the blue tower rather easily. The rest of the stage has these circuits again. You can see the plan here to get from one place to another. And SPO wants us to go into the 3 other towers as well, because he wants data from Eggman. I did the green tower without collecting rings, as well as the yellow tower, but on the way to the red tower we have a problem, because every way that leads to it has rings in some form. I decided to collect these 6 rings. Sometimes you only get 4 of them. To be honest, I did this with save states again. At the red tower we have a light dash, but we can avoid it by doing another good spin dash jump. So I went into the red tower and finished the hero mission with only 4 rings. The normal mission just wants us to go into the red tower to get to the exit of the cyberspace. This is obviously also possible with only 4 rings. But there's another possibility, and it's called unlockable weapons. Every time you watch an ending for the first time, you unlock a new weapon, or upgrade an already existing one. Later you can get it out of those shadow boxes, and today we will use the heal cannon that you unlock if you got to the most heroic path until stage 6. With the heal cannon you can heal opponents and fill up 10% of the opposing gauge. Using this on Eggman's robots allows us to fill up the hero gauge and use chaos control. We do that near the platform in the center. And now watch this!
Behold the ultimate power!
This might be nothing too special for some of you, but so satisfying. The rest of the way in the red tower is like before, so you can finish Mad Matrix normal and hero without rings. If you want a challenge in this game, Mad Matrix hero without rings. This is really fun to do. The dark mission really is not possible without save states. For Black Doom we have to activate 30 bombs on the Matrix to destroy the cyberspace. So I took the map again, created a route, started to play and then said screw it. For some bombs you have to get past 6 rings, of which you sometimes randomly only collect 5 or 4 again. On the lower left we have a blue orb that fills up the hero gauge, so with chaos control we can skip at least one of these places. Unfortunately Shadow barely can fill the blue gauge another time. And on both sides we have a light dash that we have to take and that we also cannot skip. I tried everything. But with a very hard jump and a good light dash afterwards, we sometimes only collect 1 ring. And the other light dash can be skipped by doing that bomb last. So we have 22 rings in the end. You can see the exact distribution here. However, it could look like this with the heal cannon. First I go into the green tower and fill 80 to 90% of the hero gauge. Then I get a worm launcher. I need it to make this way on the lower right with hero shadow. I do it so the homing shot hits the opponent as late as possible to make the way without the hero gauge running empty. Then I use a chaos control that saves me 4 rings. The other chaos control that lets me skip another 4 rings is like in the hero or normal mission, with help of a new heal cannon and the yellow tower. In the red area I attempted to fill up the hero gauge once more, but I barely couldn't do it, because there are not enough opponents for it. To be honest, it's a pity, because now we can't use this beautiful chaos control. So we have to take one of the 2 light dashes that give 1 ring. But it's interesting to go into the green and the yellow tower in a dark mission. 14 rings we have in the end. The boss fight in this stage is Egg Breaker, and I cheesed it a bit by defeating a respawning enemy over and over in a safe place and using chaos control, but that makes another 10 rings. You probably shouldn't go to Death Ruins, because to get there you'd have to collect 400 rings for Tails beforehand, and that's definitely worse than everything else we saw so far, but I will show you the stage anyway for completionists. At the second save point you have to push forwards to not land on it. Especially at the hero mission we encounter a lot of ring boxes, but they are all avoidable. At the 5th save point you also have to watch out. So every path for the hero mission, where you have to defeat 50 black arms for Rouge, is possible without collecting rings. For the dark mission we have to do a funny spin dash jump near the end at the loopings to safely avoid all rings, but then we can leave the jungle without collecting rings. We also have a boss fight in this stage, and it's Black Bull once again. Funny enough, we only start with 5 instead of 10 rings this time, but we have to steer away Rouge from other rings immediately. The fight itself is pretty easy. We need 2 weapons from opponents and can then attack him repeatedly from below, so it stays at 5 rings. Because the video would be too long otherwise, this shall be it for today. Here you can see once again what we have achieved so far. Maybe you're back next time when not only the rest of the stages will be looked into, but also the route planning will happen. I hope you had a good time, wish you a nice day, and see ya!